Hello and welcome to the Strong Suit Podcast, where we focus on the people part of your business. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I interview a world-class expert on talent and recruiting so that you can build a company filled with rock stars. And when we talk about recruiting, we've got to talk about the dreaded job description. It's been around for hundreds of years. Most of them still don't work. In today's interview, we're going to figure out what's wrong with them and how to make yours work. Every company's got them. I've read them. You've read them. Most of them are pathetic. And I wanted to find an expert on job descriptions, someone that knows this stuff and has thought more about it than anyone I could think of. And I found him. His name is Rob Kelly. Now, Rob is the CEO of Ongig, and that is their main focus. Ongig focuses on the job description, and we're going to talk about that over the next 20 minutes. But briefly about Rob, prior to that, he's been CEO a couple of times, including for a dating advice website, which I found to be very cool. And he's also worked in big media companies, Topica, CMP Media, etc. So with all that, welcome to the show, Rob. How are you?
Hey, I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me, Jeff.
Great. It's good to have you on the show, and I really appreciate you making the time. Why don't we start with the obvious question of kind of how you fell into this? What made you decide that you wanted to devote this piece of your career to job descriptions?
You know, it was about 15 or 18 years ago, job descriptions first entered my brain in a meaningful way because I was sitting across from a guy most of you probably know about, or at least you know, or have used his product, Craig Newmark of Craigslist.
Yep.
We're in San Francisco, and I basically realized that 95% of the revenue for Craigslist, and he was doing really well with a small team at that point. This is in the late 90s, I think, was coming. So, tens of millions of dollars coming from selling job postings. And I thought, wow, there's a big business there. Something's going on there. This is important to people to hire.
Yep.
And I started a little spreadsheet figuring out what he was doing. Years later, I met a guy in Chicago named Brad Smart, and of Top Grading fame, had helped GE and Jack Welch hire. And he was the second big seed that he planted in my brain, which was he convinced me that a hire, if it's the wrong one, and you know this as well as anyone, Jeff, can be a mistake that could cost you 10 to 20 times that person's annual salary.
Yeah. For a small company, it can kill your company.
Kill your company, bring it down. So those two things together, then fast forward years later, saw Steve Jobs' famous, Stanford speech to the students there, the grads, about doing what you love, having passion. I had the good fortune to meet Steve and get to interview him when I was a journalist. And I realized I wanted to do something new, create something new. And I started to think of a hire as $1 million transaction. There's literally $1 million on the line. And besides buying a house, most of us, if we're lucky enough to spend 6 figures on a house, maybe 7 for some of you listeners out there, then what bigger transaction is there? There's literally $1 million on the line for most hires. And yet this boring old job posting back to Craigslist, which still kind of represents what most of them look like, that really is the ad that is going to, market this $1 million hire.
Yeah.
And I thought there's got to be a better way. And we launched Ongig to transform.
And when did you start Ongig?
2011 is really when it was founded.
Great. So you talk about creating stunning and effective job descriptions. Before we talk about what you should do, let's talk about what you shouldn't do. And we're not talking so much about, at least yet, the appearance, because I'm sure now most job descriptions should have videos in them, et cetera. But setting aside the appearance, what is wrong with the words, the phrases that people use in their job descriptions?
Mostly they're not written as an ad, and they've got a lot of baggage because they typically are written by a very busy hiring manager or CEO, of a small business. I use those interchangeably then. The CEO is the hiring manager in the beginning.
In a lot of cases.
I know that all too well.
Yeah.
And I'm still involved in every hire here at Ongig. And so typically the job description is written by either a busy hiring manager type who's so busy that they just don't have the time to write a really good ad, which is what a job description needs to be.
Yeah. It's an advertisement.
It's an ad, or it's written by perhaps someone in HR, if you're lucky enough to have an HR team in a larger company.
Yep.
And most HR people aren't trained in copywriting. They don't know a lot about writing an ad. A classic HR person is non-recruiting, I'm talking about.
Yep.
They're not like you, Jeff, but the classic HR is actually more of a guardian. They
Sure.
might write the employee manual. You know, that makes sense, right? And you want to help guard the employees and take care of them once they're in.
Yep.
But to get them in the door, to get them to take it, give your company attention, takes someone who actually knows how to write an ad or copy.
Got it. So they really don't, they're not trained for this, which is understandable. When you read job descriptions, and you've read thousands, I'm guessing, if not tens of thousands, what is the most common mistake or two in the actual words, in the prose? Is it the heading, the job title, the intro? Is it the length? What are the most common offenses you see?
It's a great question. So I'll kind of go almost in order of what you see if you're the candidate, and because they all matter, but I'll give you the ones that we found to be the most impactful when you fix them, and also the most common.
Yep.
So let's start with the job title. Most folks, or many folks, make a mistake with the job title. Either it's too long. If you go longer than, say, 1 to 3 words or about 20 characters in a job title, you're going to see your apply rate decline. We've measured this. So literally, you get people saying, you know, I want the ninja software developer for, you know, for a new business unit. They put that in the title, or they put the parentheses, bonus included, and some other things in there.
And then the location and everything else.
Oh yeah, sometimes they put the location in as if it's not included in the rest of the job posting.
Yeah.
So the title, making it too long, common mistake, and also trying to be clever, back to that ninja. Really, with titles, job titles, you just want to be straightforward. You need to hire a designer, say designer. Software developer, say software developer. Maybe you can go to something like Java software developer. Java developer.
Okay, so the length of the title is a big one, you see.
Correct. That's a big one. Length, or being trying to be clever, you know, with it. Just be straightforward and short and brief to the point. Next up is very common mistake. Majority, we did a measurement of this. The majority of job descriptions, and I'm going to use job descriptions and job postings interchangeably with job ads. The majority start out with an about us section, right? About us. Here's who we are. My grandfather started the company, or I started the company, whoever did. So in copy and marketing, you really want to treat the candidate like the hero of the story, and you want to speak to them immediately. They're the protagonist in the story. They don't care about you yet. You're the guide. They're Luke Skywalker, and you want to be Obi-Wan Kenobi, guiding them through this. And you want to start off with what's in it for them. The first paragraph should be what's something that is attractive to them. And unless it's really, really sexy that your grandfather started the company, or you did, and it's some mission, Tom's Shoes, giving away a shoe to each, you know, for each customer to some third world country, then probably you want to start off diving into the actual position description.
Got it. Okay. What else?
Another mistake would be kind of along that same lines, is get the benefit to them right in there. So let's just say you have a software developer job. That's a big one to hire for, or sales rep. Let's take both of those. So you've got I know you do a lot in sales. Let's go to the sales side. Let's say you've got a killer training program for each new salesperson that joins. That might be a top benefit to some sales folks. Well, get it in there in the opening paragraph. Get a benefit like that in there. Or that you get to sell something new where you're creating a new market and it's a brand new product. That's a benefit. That's something a salesperson's going to go in and say, wow, that's cool. That's unique. That's different. On the developer side, it might be, let's say you've got a product, potentially it's going to be used by millions. Say it. How would you like to develop a product that potentially will be used by, even if it's thousands of people, hundreds of people, and be specific. So get the benefit in there in the opening paragraphs.
So it sounds like the headline to me kind of sounds like these aren't really written as advertisements. They're written as documents, prose, right? As opposed to what a head of marketing would do. Think about your customer. What's your hook? What's your story? What's your offer? How are you going to pull them into the funnel and engage them when they don't know you? They don't care about you. And we're going about it completely the opposite way.
Correct. You nailed it.
And are there companies that somehow have gotten this right, even if they're not customers of Ongig, but they're just doing it the right way? And how did they figure out how to do it the right way?
Well, the ones who, like anything else, I mean, they learned it. This is all learnable. I mean, they're just best practices to do. And of course, Ongig built software to automate a lot of this, but you can do these things. I mean, there's plenty of practical advice, keeping your title short, keeping your job description dense, meaning it should be, the keyword density should be such that there's an interesting story where a company in Colorado, it's on one of our blogs, and I forget the name, doesn't matter, relatively small company. When you looked up sales rep online on Google, they were on the first page of Google, their actual job postings. And the company was very small. I'm talking 30 people, maybe 30 to 50, somewhere along those lines.
Yep.
They were beating Facebook, Google, everyone else. The reason that they were beating everyone, because we looked under the hood, we wanted to know too, we're always trying to learn, was they had keyword density of sales rep throughout their job description. Whether the phrase sales
by density, you mean repetition.
Repetition, but not just like robotic. They had sales rep or just words that were synonymous with sales.
Yep.
And very keyword dense. They did a couple other things, some tricks and Google SEO stuff that helped them out. But keyword density alone is what a sales rep wants to be reading about a job that is very sales centric. So do you have training on how to be the best sales rep ever? Mention it again in there. And so that's the way they were beating Google and Facebook in that case, was just through the keyword density. And you'd be surprised. If you have a sales rep posting, go online and look, you could read the rest of it. There's a lot of fluff in there. And so Google's not going to pick up that article and show it on the first page.
Right.
They looked at this Colorado company and said, this is the sales rep page we want to show today.
Now you got to be worried about optimizing your job descriptions for Google.
Correct. And that's a whole nother world.
Because of Google Jobs, you know, if you haven't done this, many people have not, as a listener, go to Google, type in VP Marketing in Chicago. Google has now gotten into the jobs business, Google Jobs, but you have to configure your job description the right way. I know that your software Ongig helps people do that, correct?
Correct. It's built in. It's tricky, but you can do it manually if you've got some time and can't afford, an automated software platform.
Yep. Got it. Before we go talk about what to do, what Ongig does and how it helps people, give us one more big surprising mistake that people make with regard to, let's say, the call to action. So you talked about the headline in the beginning. Jump to the end of the job description. Normally it's a, click here to apply. What do you find is the biggest mistake there at the end of the job description?
Well, I'd say you're exactly right. It's like an ad, and you want a primary call to action, which should be typically apply. The apply should be, people like buttons. They like to click buttons. It should be a clear, it should pass what we call in advertising, and you know this, Jeff, would be the squint test. If you look at your job posting and squint at that page, then the call to action should be the most obvious thing. Yep. When you're squinting that you see, and that should be a big button, typically that says apply, and you should have it not only at the top above the fold, as they say in copywriting, well above, so you're not scrolling, and it should be below if you are continuing to scroll. You should have it twice because that's what you want them to do.
Yep. Got it. Very good. Now let's talk about Ongig. And we're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but people can learn more. They can go to is it ongig.com, correct?
Yep, correct.
O-N-G-I-G. But give people a sense of how much time they could save and how much more effective their job descriptions can be.
Absolutely. So really, clients are coming to us, employers are coming to us for two problems. One, it took us a while to figure this out, which two are most important. Number one is they want to attract top-tier talent. We did a little study, by the way, that said if you were to hire, let's say, if you're lucky enough to hire 100 people, in your business over some period of time. The very best hire of those 100, you know how much that's worth in revenue if you were competing with a public company, S&P 500 company? On average, that best hire out of your next 100 is worth $30 million in revenue per year.
Mm.
Isn't that amazing? Next couple, by the way, 2 or 3 are each worth a few million a year in revenue to your business. If you aspire to be a S&P 500 type company,
Yep.
you could even take those to half or a third if you are starting out early on. Okay, so the best was worth 10 million a year to you in the early days.
Yep.
So anyway, top tier talent and attracting them is what employers come to Ongig for. Problem number one is they want to stand out in this world where you're competing with Facebook and Google and Twitter. Those are the big, high tech companies that a lot of young people and old people want to go work for.
Yep.
Or maybe you've just got someone who's number one in your industry and you're not number one yet. And you have to stand out and try to attract a passive candidate, someone who's already probably happily working somewhere, not on the unemployment line. Ongig's all for helping everyone in the world get a job, but we're after attracting the stars. So the first thing Ongig does is let you be sexy and tell your story better. You can drag and drop video onto every job posting, pictures to show your culture. You could have how walkable your job is, literally a walk score. We're the only company in the world that does this. You might have seen it on real estate sites, by the way, and some other places. We do it on job postings. If you have a Employer of Choice Award, great news site out there. Here's a good tip. Comparably.com. It's an alternative to Glassdoor. Well, you can get a presence on there and you might start to get voted best place to work for women or for developers. And they have a number of awards.
Yep.
So you'll find an award somewhere. We can help you drag and drop that award onto every job posting.
Which makes a huge difference in being compelling to candidates.
Yep, we put a Google map up there to show the location, how close it is commuting, transit friendly or not, bikeable, walkable, you name it, along with the video and the pictures, and get those nice apply buttons, colorful call to action, and color scheme and brand and logo all on there. So you stand out and you look like, Procter & Gamble and not the DMV.
Yep. Got it.
So that's number one, is
attracting a huge difference. And what kind of difference, if you had to quantify it, Robin, I know it's hard. Are you talking about we're going to get twice as many candidates, 5 times as many candidates? What have you seen before and after with some of your clients?
Well, our best recent case study was a public company that had been around for a while. Now they're, maybe a little bit larger than some of the folks listening here, but about, 2,000 employees. Company, public, had been around for a while, turned on Ongig, and overnight, just their career site, not total, but just their career site, saw an 8x increase in applications.
8 times.
8x.
And I'm sure you studied it to dig into it to make sure the numbers weren't wrong. What do you think was the biggest difference there? What were they doing wrong before and after?
I wish it was a silver bullet, but it was a combination of things. One was they had enough job postings where if, say, you've got more than 25, 30 job openings, and again, not sure how many of your listeners got that. If you do, you want to make sure they're searchable on your career site.
Yep.
Some folks don't have a search box. That was one.
Yep.
The other was that their job postings just looked like something out of the DMV. They were just all text. They looked archaic. They were hard to even navigate and find, and they just weren't visually attractive and engaging. And Google wouldn't find them at all. So a handful of those things added up and kind of had the multiplier effect to give them an 8x. And we can't promise that for all clients, but it was.
But even if you come anywhere near that, it's a huge impact.
Yeah.
So look, the bottom line here, listeners, is your job descriptions probably suck, and I'm just giving it to you straight because 99% of companies do. And that's no surprise, no offense intended. You probably weren't trained to write job descriptions, nor do you have time to do it right. But if you're going to do it and hope to have a chance of filling your funnel with candidates, especially if you're posting on job boards or you're on your own career website, take a look at Ongig. I'm fascinated because there are so many small things that you're probably missing. None of them, like Rob said, is a silver bullet, but all added together. Imagine if you could do 2x or 5x or 10x the number of candidates. It'd make a huge difference.
Yeah, one thing to add, just I know how much you care about hiring sales folks, is that a lot of clients come to us for diversity, and it turns out that the text in most job postings is highly biased towards men.
Yeah.
There's a lot of theories around this because it's been written by men, or
Yeah.
most business leadership still is dominated by at least the majority of run by men. And so one thing we found to move the needle too was we had an insurance company, for instance, who wanted to hire more women as sales folks. They only had about 20% of their sales team were women. And it's been proven, you know this, Jeff, that women sell at least as well as men. There's some studies showing they have a slight edge, actually. And so we were able to help the head of sales for this company go and attract much better caliber candidates just by gender neutralizing the text
Right.
job postings. Because they were
Right.
using words like aggressive and competitive, kind of a bro culture inside. And it turns out that women, female candidates, they can see this. They read right through that. They say, that sounds like a boys club. I'm out of here. And and then instead, that employer has to hire the next best person, more likely to be a man,
Which may be half as good.
half as good, and right
Yep.
there again, millions of bucks on the
Yep.
line. And
Yep.
all it was changing 3 or 4 words.
Rob, I can't thank you enough for making the time and for sharing this stuff with us. How can people learn more about Ongig or get in touch?
Yeah, go to Ongig, ONGIG.com, Ongig.com. Find me, Rob Kelly, on LinkedIn. Connect with me just now that we've got this mutual connection in Jeff, who, by the way, if you want to see good marketing and good examples of it, just in general, Recruit Rockstars is, you get it. When you go to that homepage.
You go on. I didn't pay you to say that, did I?
Do the squint test and you see what the call to action is. You've got it nailed. That is good marketing, and that's how a job posting should look. And so you get it, obviously, and happy to share this with your audience, and connect with me on LinkedIn.
Great.
If you think we can be of help, come to ongig.com, request a demo.
Great.
We're happy to share the story with you.
Nothing I do that anyone else can't do. Just get some help. Rob, thank you for making the time. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for doing what you do, Jeff. Awesome podcast.